this video, I'm going to walk you through all the settings for the events calendar. First, you can reach the settings through this sidebar, events, and then down to settings, or you can use the admin bar to go events and then settings. I am going to be demonstrating the events calendar and events calendar pro together. So you may notice that some of these settings are missing if you do not have the events calendar pro. So first we are in general and then viewing. The events calendar URL slug is the slug in the URL that will show all of your events of your calendar page. We recommend that this is plural. And then the single event URL is the slug that will show for a single event. We recommend that this is a single noun. So in this case, it is a singular event to match the events. This setting, include events in main blog loop, is to include the events with the other posts on your site. So you can check or uncheck that to determine that. This setting for recurring event instances is to condense the events showing on your calendar on the front end to only show the next instance of each recurring event. And this only affects list view. Alternatively, you can leave the option for your users to decide whether to show instances of just the first instance of a recurring event by leaving a toggle for them to click or unclick. There's also the option to enable the month view cache, which will help improve performance on your site just on month view. And then you have this option to toggle show the events calendar link on the bottom of your calendar, which will be a nice thank you to the events calendar and give kudos on your page. Moving along, we have the editing tab. So you have this events manager option, which on the back end will allow you to view your calendar while editing your events versus the typical admin list view. We also have the option to enable or disable the Gutenberg block editor when you're editing or creating your events. And then show custom field meta box is for the classic editor. It allows you to enable WordPress custom fields. Next, we have maintenance. This is the option to automatically trash events older than a given time frame. And then you also can merge duplicate venues and organizers by clicking on this button. Next, we have debugging. So debug mode will show errors in your error log. And then we have the option to install this plugin that will help output the tribe debug options so that you can more easily debug the events calendar specific errors. This data share consent option will allow you to share information with our support team and access the chatbot. Finally, this in-app notification will allow you to receive notifications from us that will include updates, fixes, and features. And you do also have to opt in to consent to that. All right, next we have the display tab. So we have the calendar template options. So you can either choose the more bare bones, override your theme styles with the skeleton styles, or the default styles, which will show a more fully fleshed out calendar with more styles that come baked into the events calendar. Next, the calendar display. Again, this is with Events Calendar Pro enabled. So there's lots of options here, but this is which views you want to be available to your users for viewing your calendar. You can choose which view you want to be default based on the list that you have enabled up here. For Events Calendar Pro, you can choose which your default view you want for mobile view, and that can differ than your regular non-mobile view. You can change how many events month view shows per day. The default is 3, and if you want to have no limit on this, you can put -1. However, we don't recommend that all the time if you have a lot of events because that can lead to performance issues. Similarly, you can limit the number of events to show per page, so this will affect list view, photo view, and map views. You can enable or disable comments on event pages, and you can disable the event search bar which is this bar that shows on event pages. You can also hide related events on single event view. You can hide the weekends on week view. So I'll just show that real quick. That would just hide these 2 days or whichever day your weekend is. And you can display your images as a grid and photo view, which will change the aspect ratio of your photos. Next, you can change the display for your organizers, which is just the option to toggle or untoggle phone numbers and emails on either the event single page or the organizer single page. For date and time, you have a bunch of options here to change the formatting of your date with year, date without year, month and year, weekday, compact date, date time separator, time range separator, end of date cutoff. This will affect when you have an event that ends near your date time cutoff. It will either be a multi-day event or it will just show on one day. You can remove event end time from any of these views, and that will affect the end time will no longer display for events that end on the same day when viewing that specified view. You also can decide whether or not to show the time zone on your events. And then your time zone mode, you can change to use manual time zones or use the site-wide time zone. For currency, you want to select a default currency symbol and then currency code. And then you can decide where you want the currency symbol to show up in relation to the cost. Okay. And then for maps, you can enable or disable the maps and then choose your default zoom level. And then if we go to additional content, you can enable the before HTML, before shortcodes, which will show any HTML that you want to add here before your shortcodes. And then similarly, after HTML is the same thing, but it shows after the shortcode, whatever you enter into this box. All right, moving to default content. This is a Events Calendar Pro option. You can enter information here for default fields if you have a lot of similar venues. And same for organizer. We have, this is another Events Calendar Pro option, is additional fields. You can add fields that will then be an option to enter onto your events. So you can choose what type of field it is, give it a label, and then whether or not you want to include this in the block editor. Okay, next up we have your license page. So if you have advanced paid plugins, then you can enter the license key there. We also have, if you have the filter bar, then your settings will be here. Same for community, which is another one of our featured plugins. Integrations, if you have different features, you can enter your API here and get that all hooked up. You can connect to Meetup. For your event aggregator, which is how you connect events between your site and Meetup or Eventbrite. Power Automate is a way to automate different triggers and actions. Same thing with Zapier. You can connect Google, and that can be related to Google Meet, Microsoft, WebEx, Zoom, Facebook Live video, Facebook video, YouTube Live, and then the Google Maps API is related to the maps showing on your site, on your single events, and on map view, if you have that enabled. And then imports is if you have event aggregator set up, then you can customize how those events get imported with these options here. Okay, this was a long video, but thank you for watching. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to our help desk. Thank you.